right, my friends. Appreciate you being here with me. J.R. Dukes at your service. We finally made it, ladies and gentlemen. It is finally election day here in the United States. Seems like it took forever to get here. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure everything is coming through the way it should be coming through. If you have any issues hearing me, just type it in the comments below. But hopefully, we have a rather uneventful problem as far as the technology goes. Seems like it's working good. Quick hello to everyone on YouTube that is filing in right now, and of course to the folks watching on the X platform, and our friend that will be joining us shortly on Twitch, probably. Okay, it looks good. I don't see any issues whatsoever, which of course is the way I like it. Wanted to let everyone know that if you have, if you'd like to tune in and say hello, have a question, you can go ahead and join us by video. I just put the link in the actual chat. All you got to do is click on that link. It's pretty easy and self-explanatory. You'll show up on my screen, and I'll be happy to add you to the chat, and we can make you part of the conversation today. So finally, election day. I hope you had a chance to get out and vote. If you have not done so, the polls are still open in the United States, and you have time to vote. It is roughly 5:46 Eastern Standard Time. So the polls here in my home state of Florida do not close to, I believe, 7 or 8 o'clock tonight, something like that. So you still have time to get out. Obviously, the lines have been long. And here in Florida, we have early voting like they have in many parts of the country. And I'm telling you, the polls here have been absolutely packed. And I mean, people, it was kind of surprising to me because when they first opened up with the early voting, I was thinking, wow, first day and there's lines out the door. And every time I drove by the polling place down the street, always a line. I don't think I ever remember a time where there was not a line, and I'm talking early voting. And of course, if you've been watching television, you know that there has been all kinds of lines all over the country. And, I think that's a good sign. I think that bodes well for former President Donald Trump. We'll just have to see how this all ends up working out in the end. So let's go ahead. There's a few things I want to talk about, and then I want to spend a few minutes with you on just some things that's going on in the news related to the election and things that we will take a few minutes to talk about. So let's go ahead and look at the national polling. This is Real Clear Politics. Think of this as a poll of the polls, because that's exactly what this is. And specifically, what I want to take away on this is that Donald Trump, remember this fact, whether he wins or loses tonight, he right now is currently polling better than he has ever polled. And I think that is something to remember. It's really, really stunning. That means he's doing better right now than he did in 2016. He's doing better right now than he did in 2020. Now, if you look at the actual polling from today, so we got the RCP polling averages 2020, Biden was showing a 7.2 percentage lead in this particular poll. And of course, you had Hillary Clinton in 2016 showing a 3.2% advantage. Okay. Now, Biden again, 7.2. The actual average that came out was 4.5. So there was definitely an underrepresentation of President Trump in that poll in 2020. And as we all know, famously, a huge discrepancy in 2016. Again, Hillary Clinton, 3.2%. And the actual results was what you see right here on your screen at 2.1%. And this is really key. So if you want a legitimate indicator as to what is likely to happen, what we'll do is we'll simply take the 7.2, we'll add it to the 3.2. That gives us 10.4. Divide that by 2 to get a simple average on the polls. I want to make sure I do this correctly. So you had a 4.5 difference with Biden, and then a 2.1 result equals. So you're looking at roughly a 3 to 4% difference in the polling. And there's no reason to believe that they have corrected this polling discrepancy. I don't believe it. I don't see no evidence that they have corrected. Remember back in 2016, they were telling us definitively Hillary Clinton was going to win. I remember watching her go in with Bill Clinton to vote at her polling place. I mean, there was just like this air of inevitability that she was the president. This was all just kind of a formality. And of course, she ended up losing to President Trump. these polls are just really, they're not any good, at least when it comes to President Donald Trump. I'm not sure exactly why that is. Obviously, they're not doing something correct to get a reliable result from the polling. Now, they told us that they had fixed that back right after 2016. And of course, we know from 2020 that was not the case either, because Joe Biden did not beat Donald Trump by the margins that these polls had predicted. And as I just said, you were looking at a 4.5% difference in 2020. So I just don't take any stock in these current polls as they claim that they are right now. So let's do a quick chat about the actual map. What you see on your screen is what we've been talking about in the what we call the Electoral College. And this lighter shaded area is what the pundits, talking heads, legacy media has all told us are the so-called battleground states. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I'm not really convinced that all these states are indeed battleground states. But imagine these states and they're off by 3, 4, maybe 5%. Let's just say they're off by 4%, 3.5%, if you will. It's going to be a great night for President Trump if that is the case. And again, I just don't believe these polls. You know, that one poll that came out, where was that, in Iowa, showing something to the effect that it was like one of the last polls they took over this past weekend, was showing that Joe Biden, I'm sorry, Kamala Harris, excuse the problem there, Kamala Harris was polling ahead of Donald Trump by 3 points or so in the state of Iowa, which of course is complete nonsense. I don't believe that. I don't think anybody that is a credible pollster or reporter has, gives any credence to that. At least I don't. That's just my humble opinion on there. But we're going to find out. So let's go ahead and let's just color this in, and let's see how this works out right here. So I'll take this one out of my ear to make it more comfortable on myself. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's fill this in. Let's say that this is going to go ahead and go by what we expect it to go, as far as the red states that are generally red, we're going to color them in red. So here we go. Arizona is pretty well a lock-in for Donald Trump. We talked about that yesterday. There's no way that Kamala Harris is going to beat President Trump in Georgia. I just do not see that happening. I lived in Georgia for some time. I just don't see it. And if the amount of people that have turned out is any indication, clearly there's a lot of people coming out to support former President Donald Trump. Same thing in North Carolina. Remember, North Carolina has voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. I'm guessing that the pollsters are saying that the margin is more narrow, therefore they consider it a battleground state, but I don't see it. We've heard a lot about this blue wall. This is the reason why Kamala Harris was in Pennsylvania, because technically speaking, whoever wins Pennsylvania is highly likely to win the presidency. As a matter of fact, from what I'm thinking and what I have been showing everyone and the calculations I've did myself, this map, as you see it right now, what they call this blue wall here in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris has to win each one of these states. If she does not win these 3 states, she cannot be the next president. And as a quick caveat, if indeed Donald Trump was to win Virginia or one of these other states, it's all over for the Harris campaign. She simply cannot win because the math does not add up. So let's go ahead and let's just take a look at what we've been talking about. Let's say Donald Trump right now, my estimate is 262. He should take the state of Pennsylvania. There is a math person, a statistician, that essentially came up with a 60% probability that one candidate, either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, should sweep all these battleground states. And I think that's a real possibility. So let's go ahead and play this out, how this would look. If you notice, just was Pennsylvania, and I'm excluding Nevada, and there's 6 electoral college votes. Donald Trump, again, excluding Nevada, would win with 281 electoral college votes. Remember, it only takes 270 electoral college votes to be the next president of the United States. So we're going to go ahead and let's just tell you straight up, this is my prediction. Nothing in stone, but this is the way I think it's going to work out. And I think Donald Trump's even going to carry Nevada. I will admit that as far as Nevada goes, I'm taking a little bit of speculation on my part, because Donald Trump did not win it in 2016 or 2020. But the polling has been very favorable for Donald Trump. And when he came up with that no tax on tip business, that really resonated with Nevada, specifically the county of Henderson, which is where Las Vegas is located, because there's so many individuals there that work in the hospitality industry. And of course, Las Vegas is all about tourism. There's a lot of people that work in Las Vegas that support the visitors. Of course, that's pretty simple. And this no tax on tips situation has been very, very popular. And I think that has been reflected in the polling, even though, again, I believe that polling is just simply well underestimating the appeal of Donald Trump. We're going to find out very soon. So I'm going on the record right now. It's obviously recorded. You're hearing it right from my mouth, whether you listen to it now or later tonight. I'm going to project Donald Trump the winner at 312 electoral college votes. And of course, Kamala Harris would wind up with 226 in this scenario. So you have heard it. That's my prediction. And we'll just have to see how this turns out. Do you agree or disagree? If you have the option or you're able to do so, let me know in the comments. Do you think this is a likely scenario? Do you think I'm just imagining this? So who knows? We're going to find out very soon. So let me go ahead and switch to some things that I want us to talk about on the X platform here. Let me go ahead and pull this up for us. So a lot of interesting things going on. As you know, the legacy media, MSNBC, some of these other places, ladies and gentlemen, they are having a fit, to put it mildly and to keep it PG rated. They are not happy warriors, if you know what I'm saying. They are not very, very pleased with exactly what's going on. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this for ourselves right now. Let's see how this looks. All right. First thing here, we have this one post that I want to listen to this video briefly. This is the Florida Senator Marco Rubio, and you have, again, one of these Face the Nation type programs, legacy media, extremely liberal. Interesting comments that he makes on here, and then we're going to talk about it here. May turn on the volume once.
Talking about training guns on the field. Well, in terms of safety and security, that soundbite a moment ago from Donald Trump talking about training guns on the face of Liz Cheney. The Trump campaign says that was about foreign policy. Well, we just played it for our viewers and listeners who heard it. Isn't it possible to make the case without using rhetoric like that?
But Donald Trump doesn't talk like someone who's been in Washington for 30 years. He doesn't
training
say
guns
it the way
on
I
her
would have said it.
face?
No, but that's not what he said. Mario, you guys know that. Come on. I mean, everybody knows exactly what he was saying. What he was saying is, you're so much in favor of war. Yeah, you played a piece of the soundbite.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how the legacy media, they keep getting away with this? I just have to assume, folks, that we all know the truth. The people that stay ignorant on this subject want to stay ignorant on this subject. Back on this deal with Liz Cheney, we know what's going on with Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney hates Donald Trump. Why does Liz Cheney hate Donald Trump? Because Donald Trump got rid of her. I mean, just to call it what it is. She went against the wishes of her own state of Wyoming that she represented. She decided that she knew better than the people that represented her, and she made an enemy out of Donald Trump. And in return, Donald Trump, rightly so in my estimation, made sure that somebody was primaried against Liz Cheney. Of course, Liz Cheney lost that primary, and then the Republican representative from conservative Wyoming went on to take her seat. And of course, she is extremely mad about this. And of course, her war hawk dad, Dick Cheney, is not a happy camper either, to put it mildly and directly. So she has no one to blame but herself for the situation that she's in. And again, what they're talking about here is what we have seen on the news the last couple of days. Donald Trump making a very simple point that Liz Cheney's a war hawk. She wants to go to war over anything and everything. And he simply said, if she was basically serving actually in the military and she had to go over there and risk her life, her blood, her treasure, fighting some war that some bureaucrat sitting behind a desk in Washington, D.C. decided she had to go fight, she'd be very careful about deciding to go to war, deciding to basically risk people's lives for war. War obviously is a very serious game for the obvious reasons. And I think it was a proper point. some people are like that. They're used to sitting behind a desk and think they know how to run everything, but it's not their family and it's not their backside on the line about to get killed. And that's exactly what's going on here. And when they show this clip on the news, they only edit the clip. They play just a small portion of the clip, and it makes it sound like Donald Trump is indeed saying that Liz Cheney want to point guns at her.
Because in another
Complete
piece of it, he
nonsense.
said he would give her a gun to go stand in conflict as well. You don't normally give a gun to someone that's going to be facing a firing squad, which is what much of the media made it sound like. The point he was making is not a new point. It is a point that has been made by people in both parties for decades, and that is you're all for war, and it's easy to be for war when you're in some fancy building and you're safe and sound in Washington, D.C. Let's see how much you are for war when you yourself get deployed into combat. That's the point that he was making, that he uses language that maybe is not what we typically hear from someone that works at a think tank. Oh, fine. But I think it's truly not just unfair. It's egregious to.
That's exactly right. And that's one thing I like about Marco Rubio. He is a fighter himself. I was kind of disappointed that Donald Trump picked J.D. Vance to be his running mate because I thought Marco Rubio might be a better pick. I have since changed my mind and I realized why J.D. Vance was picked. I mean, he is a great candidate. Now, again, I like Marco Rubio and I like the way he puts this reporter in her place. I think he did a good job on handling this particular interview. And by the way, let's take this comment real quick. Dennis said, what happens to the court cases if Trump wins? That's a good question. And it's one of the criticisms that, again, you have the media always trying to say Donald Trump is running because he wants to stay out of prison. Folks, this lawfare stuff really gets to me. It really aggravates me, as it should you. The Democrats have done nothing but taken our great country and made it into basically a banana republic. There is a speech that the current president of Ecuador gave to the United Nations earlier this year, and he was so spot on with his comments. And basically what he said is when you allow your country to go down this road, it is destructive and it will destroy your country. When you start taking money from a man or a woman because they don't share your views or because you disagree with them or you're in a different political party and you try to incarcerate, which is what they're trying to do with Donald Trump, because they went ahead and make some kind of nonsense up about him and about what he allegedly did by resurrecting dead misdemeanors and turning them into felonies. Well, it's just ridiculous. And to answer your question directly, Dennis, which is an excellent question, if Donald Trump wins, he's simply going to order the Department of Justice to fire Jack Smith, and it's all over. That's the end of it. Plus, the president could pardon himself for any alleged crimes. I'm not sure if that's constitutional or not. That would have to go to the Supreme Court. But what I will say is the Supreme Court obviously earlier this year returned what I believe is the correct decision in giving a president complete immunity for his official acts. Don't believe the mainstream press trying to tell you that he's like a king now and he can do whatever he wants. That's a bunch of nonsense. It's always been the case ever since the Nixon administration. I think it was litigated in 81, 82, 83, somewhere in there. And they determined that a president had absolute immunity for civil issues. Now, civil, we're talking about money. I believe that one of the candidates was sued for something in a civil context when they were president of the United States, and rightly so. The Supreme Court back then said you cannot sue a president in that capacity for his official acts. So they just simply extended that, again, correctly so, to the criminal arena. I think it was a well thought out decision, and it's pretty well a no-brainer in my opinion. So, Dennis, to answer your question directly, if that happens, then what they will do is it will all go away. If he was to lose the election, then he's got problems because they're going to continue to go forward with the Jack Smith nonsense. Additionally, you have the Judge Merchan in New York City that is going to sentence President Trump, and he is looking at essentially a life sentence at his age. Everybody's telling me, oh, he won't go to jail. That judge will not sentence him to jail. I can assure you he will sentence him to jail. There's no way that a normal person can be found guilty of 35 Class E felonies, essentially be penalized by the court I believe it was 10 times for violating the so-called gag order, and then that individual not face some type of prison sentence. And unfortunately, Dennis, that's exactly what he's facing. Again, all this goes away when he is elected, and let's hope that we have a resolution on that tonight or sometime tomorrow, that it doesn't continuously drag out. So good question, depressing question, but good question. One other point I'll make too: if President Trump is elected, all the individuals related to January 5th and the way that these people were hammered, I would say most of them were hammered simply because they walked into the Capitol building that day. Donald Trump can pardon each and every one of them. So all those charges would go away, which I think he should do. If anybody should face criminal problems for that day, in my estimation, would be that cop that shot that unarmed former, I believe she was served in the Marines. She was a decorated Marine officer. At least she served in the Marines, and he shot her dead crawling through a window. She was unarmed. She was not a physical threat to anybody. And this cop is the same cop that years before that, you may remember hearing it on the news, that somebody found a gun in a restroom. Well, he apparently was in the bathroom using the restroom, and he left his gun in the restroom in the Capitol building. This guy is obviously a piece of work. So I don't want to digress too far from that, but that's exactly what's going on. I found this one little video I want to show us real quick. This is kind of cute. This is a meme they made, and this is a couple of guys with Tim Walz, Kamala Harris shirts going door to door. It says here, guys posing as the Kamala campaign workers went door to door trying to place illegal migrants in Democrat homes. I think you'll find this amusing. Take a break from this.
They just came across. I dressed up like I work for Kamala's campaign, and now I'm gonna deliver immigrants to her supporters.
We're voting for you. Don't worry.
Are you? We do have a surprise, if that's okay. It's just real fast. We're looking for a place for them to stay. They just came across. They'll sleep on floors. I mean, they're not picky, you know.
We have like a 2-year-old, so
Hector's good with kids.
sorry, we just can't.
Could they just like sleep on your lawn?
They need a place to stay. They just came across.
My teenagers live with me.
Oh, that's fine. Hector, he was dating a teenager like a little bit ago, so
Okay.
they just came across. They don't have papers. You're in support of like the whole border situation, and we're just trying to get them a floor to sleep on. Do you guys want COVID? They said they could survive it.
You learn how to say her name.
We work with her, so we know how to say her name.
Earlier you said Kamala. The way she pronounces her name is Kamala. You don't work with her either.
See that car? We have 3 dudes who just came across the border. We're trying to find them a home.
Find them a home.
Just say I'm voting for Donald Trump without saying it, okay?
That's a wrong attitude, mister. I said my vote is private.
So you're voting Kamala.
No. You said it again.
Well, isn't that just like some liberals trying to tell you how to say a name properly, whether it's Kamala or Camilla or whatever her name is? I just thought that was interesting, but this is exactly how people act, especially a lot of these woke liberals. They're quick to say, let all these people in across the border. We don't have to secure our borders, whatever. But when it comes to housing them or taking care of them, they have a whole different attitude when it comes to that. And I love that part where he goes, the guy's like, oh, I have kids. You know, we can't take anybody in our home. And he goes, that's okay. Hector's good with kids. So I don't know if you could hear that clearly or not, but it was hilarious as far as I'm concerned. So a couple things I want to show you. You know, you remember from NASCAR, Dana Kirkpatrick, she came out and endorsed President Trump.
You get
And in addition to that, we had Megyn Kelly that we'll take a look at in a second, that last night endorsed Donald Trump, which I thought was extremely cool. And
literally get 6 presidents when you pick him. You get Donald Trump, you get J.D. Vance, you get Bobby Kennedy, you get Tulsi Gabbard, you get Vivek Ramaswamy, and you get Elon Musk.
Amen to that. And that's a pretty good team when you think about it. Can you imagine a Democrat, especially a Kennedy, endorse a Republican? I never thought I'd ever live to see that day. To me, that's just interesting. This picture right here is of, what is his name? Willie Brown. I remember this when he was the mayor of, I believe it was San Francisco. I was living out in Phoenix at the time. And a bunch of pictures in your mind. Kamala Harris was roughly 29 years old. This guy was 60, 61 years old. And that's kind of how she got her start in politics. He appointed her. I believe it was a position on city council that opened up or something like that. So when you hear all these jokes about Kamala Harris in that regard, that's exactly what they're talking about. We have some people also mentioning online that, listen, if you're in line, if the lines are long, because there's different townships saying that they've had problems with computers. Some of that is normal, to be honest with you, in the election cycle. But I know the lines are long, but if you're in line listening to me or whatever, please stay in line. Donald Trump took a bullet to be the president of the United States and to help our democracy. We can stand in line and make sure we get out there to vote. I think that that is absolutely critical for each one of us. You know, I've been very, very outspoken on this free speech stuff, and you want to see proof that these the Democrats want to take your free speech rights away. This is a real quick clip of Tim Walz, Tampa and Tim, telling you what he thinks about free speech.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation
isn't that interesting? We talked yesterday about what they're setting up to take our free speech rights away. They're setting us all up for the following, and that is they're labeling it misinformation. Misinformation is bad, and we have to stop misinformation. So they're going to try to carve an exception out of something like threats or something that could cause bodily harm, like screaming fire in a crowded movie theater. They're going to try to include what they perceive as misinformation as part of that. But the problem with that, folks, is what is truth for one guy is not truth for the other guy. It just becomes what you call an opinion, is where all that is what all that boils down to. Now, this particular clip here, I think you're going to enjoy. Kamala Harris, if you listen to the beginning of this here, just to show how fake she's been, how fake her entire campaign has been. In this particular clip, you can hear her say, if you listen closely, it's not a spontaneous thing. She's like, hey, can we redo this again? Would you like me to try this through a different, with a knock versus just showing up? So this is real quick. Listen to this for a second.
Hey, man. Well, I want a door knock.
Oh, you want to say
I want a door knock. That's what she said. Yeah, I want a door knock. So they're going to rewind. So if you see this on the nightly news tonight, remember, this is not something where she's going door to door in real life. She did not do that. This was a staged political event. And, you know, personally, I don't have a problem with that, ladies and gentlemen. If it's a matter of security and safety of the candidate, I get that. But don't get on television and act like it's a real event and that she's literally going door to door and she just happened to have this close, loving, warm relationship with some homeowner there in the state of Pennsylvania, because it is false. It's not true. This right here is Rachel Maddow, and when she has her glasses on, there's been a lot of people talking about the fact she looks like Mark Cuban in transition, which personally I find hilarious. But it says here, she's basically telling Kamala to cancel all of Elon government's contract if she wins. If you've been following my channel, and by the way, this is a good time to say, if you're still with me, you might as well hit the thumbs up button. Be sure to subscribe, whether you're on TikTok or you're on, on X or YouTube. Subscribe, please. It helps the algorithm, helps the channel, and I definitely appreciate it. But Elon Musk, one of the main reasons, in my opinion, that he's supporting Donald Trump is because he knows he is next on the chopping block for the Dems. Unfortunately, our country has become a country of lawfare, and he knows that if Donald Trump does not win, because of his X platform and now because of his support for Donald Trump, they're going to come after him next. They're already setting the base for this with this misinformation campaign. And Elon Musk is a bad person, and he's already being sued in Pennsylvania for his $1 million a day giveaway, and they're alleging that there's some type of campaign violation or violation of law. Remember, Donald Trump has the so-called 34 felonies or whatever number it is, allegedly because he violated campaign finance law. It's really stupid when you get right down to it. So they're setting Musk up for the same thing. And if you don't believe me,
we know what we know
what this
about
sweet creature has to say. Here we go.
Even if Trump doesn't win, the Defense Department and NASA are going to need a new arrangement for all their rockets and for all the multi-billion-dollar contracts Elon Musk's companies have with the U.S. government. The U.S. government is going to have to either, unwind from all of those contracts, or Elon Musk's companies are going to have to unwind from him. This is an untenable reality in national security terms.
That's the way the left is now, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't do what they think you should do, if you don't believe in their climate nonsense or whatever it is that you don't subscribe to, or you don't say out loud that I will go ahead and support whatever it is you say, they will do whatever they can to make your life miserable, including incarcerating you. And as I just said, this is proof positive of exactly what I've been talking about. You heard this Rachel Maddow saying, hey, no matter what happens here, we have to revisit what's going on with Elon Musk. We have to take anything and everything away from him that we possibly can. To me, it's just absolutely unconscionable that these people talk like this. And these are supposed to be news agencies, you know? I mean, come on, give me a break. Just unbelievable. Here is another thing here. Crazy world, crazy stuff going on. You have, you have teachers in the school out in Hawaii. It's called Kilopai Middle School. Reportedly, it gave students a handout which promoted Kamala Harris while slamming Donald Trump. When I came across this, I'm like, and by the way, if you're wondering, I've went through X, and when I find different stories that I think is interesting that I want to point out, and I save them to my feed so that they're easy for me to find and I can talk about them like we are doing right now. So take a look at this and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Race for the White House is reaching local classrooms. Our Eddie Dowd has details on a lesson that has some parents raising their eyebrows.
The controversy is over a 2-page document that was handed out to a classroom here at Kapolei Middle School. It broke down where the U.S. presidential candidates stand on the issues. The Hawaii Department of Education confirms the document was put together by a group of teachers at the school who simplified the information in a candidate comparison article in the New York Times. Examples: crime, Harris gives money to police. Trump sends soldiers to cities. Democracy, Harris wants to keep our country a democracy.
Isn't it interesting? I don't know if you can see that on your screen or not clearly, but you have on the Kamala's column, it says, wants to keep our country a democracy, works to make sure people can vote. And then on the other side for Donald Trump, it says, tried to overturn the 2020 election, wants to diminish the electoral system, how many votes each state gets based on population, what they're describing as electoral college. And of course, that is just absolutely false and ridiculous.
Trump tried to overturn the 2020.
And it's essentially indoctrinating our children. We could all agree at that at a minimum.
2020 election. Immigration. Harris hires more people to watch the border, limits how many people can move to the U.S. Trump finds and catches people in the U.S. illegally, takes children away from their parents.
Oh, very upset.
Angel Morales' son is an 8th grader at the school and is one of several parents who felt it was biased against the former president.
Isn't that ridiculous that they do that? Now, Hawaii is definitely traditionally a Democratic state. There's no question about that. But indoctrinating children, and then we wonder why our schools are given the, I don't know what you call their education nowadays, but it's definitely slanted. It's definitely liberal. And I would say it's an outright lie in most cases. I mean, you should be teaching kids a standard curriculum. I've always thought of school's purpose is to teach people how to think, not what to think. You agree? You guys agree with that? Put in a comment. Let me know. I'm curious. I just don't think it's the school's place to be stating whatever their political position is. I think it's just, I mean, it is what it is. Here's a guy that was attacked. And I believe this was right here in Florida. He was attacked because he had a Trump sign in his yard.
County man is in the hospital with serious injuries.
It says Burbank. Scratch that. That might be California on this one, but
It all
same story.
started with a neighbor stealing his Trump flag. Fox 11's Matthew Sedor spoke exclusively with the man from his hospital room.
A violent fight heard on surveillance video, possibly over a Trump flag.
He left me there, in my opinion, to die.
John Muter speaking exclusively with Fox 11 from his hospital room with a severe concussion.
I had a bleeding of the brain.
It was an ICU.
I just can't believe the violence that this guy alluded to. For what? For a flag? Are you kidding me?
According to John, his neighbor in this Ladera Ranch community recently had a Harris Walls sign taken.
He was thinking that it was me because I had my Trump sign, which is the farthest from the truth.
Then John says the Trump flag above his garage went missing too.
Whoever did it put up a ladder, cut the flag down, and took it with them.
On trash day, John decided to check his Harris supporting neighbor's.
It's just a crazy world that we are living in. You know, generally I tell people if you're having a problem with someone, it's best probably not to confront them nowadays, because it's just generally you just run the risk of having a bad experience. I mean, there's people out there with firearms and they're not afraid to use them, if you know what I'm talking about. And it's just generally not worth the confrontation. I realize sometimes you can't help it, but I want you to just be mindful of it. And listen, this next video of Kamala Harris, you may or maybe have not seen it. What a terrible candidate she is. And folks, I'm not trying to make this sound bigger than what it is, but this woman has to be the worst candidate I have ever seen in my entire life for president of the United States. It's just really that simple. This video here is kind of difficult to watch because she's trying to get people to start chanting and start basically saying what she's saying, get a chant start. Folks, this woman has no charisma whatsoever. That's the reason why she has to have Beyonce and J-Lo and all these other people show up. And by the way, then they don't perform when all these people showed up to see them. And it is what it is, right? This woman has no charisma. Let's see how this goes. And like I said, it is a little cringy. So just get ready for it. Here we go.
Let's vote. Let's get out the 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 vote. Let's win.
Oh God! And then she had to end it with that cackle of hers. Oh my goodness! Is that not like super cringy? Am I the only one? That is just terrible. By the way, I want to take a quick second. I want to say hello to Zach, my buddy Zach. It's always good to have you back in the chat. And of course, American Nana, it's always a pleasure, young lady, to have you back visiting us today. Y'all are always definitely welcome, and I appreciate having each and every one of you join me today. And thanks to everybody else who's joined in and is contributing to the conversation today. So, you know that Joe Rogan gave his endorsement to President Trump yesterday, and this is news all by itself and could be consequential because he has such a large following on his podcast. And, you know, I mean, it is what it is. Donald Trump sat down for 3 hours with him. His running mate, J.D. Vance, sat down with him for 3 hours. And this is Elon Musk on the podcast, and it's a very interesting podcast. I encourage everyone, when you got time, go back to his channel, Joe Rogan's channel, and listen to Trump, Vance, and the full interview with Elon. It's rather a long interview, but I have some clips here that I think you will enjoy seeing. Elon is all about free speech. He's what they call a free speech absolutist, and thank God he is, and that he bought the X platform. Otherwise, we would not have a truly free speech platform. At least nothing like what X offers each and every one of us. So let's listen.
They're doing all the things that they accuse Trump of doing.
Yeah, openly. Yeah,
I mean the sheer number of hoaxes that the Democratic Party is pushing over and over again. And it's like, look, I understand like politicians are gonna, exaggerate, they're gonna misspeak, and they'll tell occasional, untruths, whatever. That's how it is in politics. But when you have deliberate, concerted, repeated pushing of hoaxes, you're like, wait a second, like, come on, man, this is too far.
And you're supposed to be the good guys.
You're supposed to, and you claim to be the good guys. I'm like, exactly.
You're supposed to be the progressives.
Yes, the Dems are like, oh, we're the good guys. We're the honest people. No, hang on. You can't claim to be the good guys. You can't claim to be the honest people if you're deliberately pushing hoaxes that have been debunked thoroughly.
Yeah. How about the other one where Kamala's campaign used what Trump was saying about protecting women and from illegal immigrants?
Thank you.
You remember that?
Yeah, this is the point where and this is recent, they have a clip of Donald Trump saying something to the effect of, I'm going to do this despite what women think. And of course, they have taken this and twisted this to infer something dealing with reproductive rights. And of course, that is not what President Trump was saying. But it's interesting that they have been pointing it out every time they get the opportunity.
What he was saying is, if the women like it or not, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
When he was saying that, they were trying to say that he was taking away women's right to choose whether women like it or not. Like, that's not what he was saying.
Absolutely.
He was literally talking about protecting them from dangerous people that are sneaking in through the border.
Yes, exactly. They'll take like not even a full sentence, like a half a sentence from Trump, and then they'll push it on every ad, every speaking event,
And it gets
media.
repeated on the news.
Yes.
This is what's crazy. They'll talk about it on these news shows.
Yeah, and they do that in more than just this particular example. They've been doing that with the Charlottesville nonsense, that there's fine people on both sides. That's been debunked so many times. I mean, I couldn't even count how many times that's been debunked. It's just, again, just complete and utter nonsense. They're just, it's just always gaslighting you and me, gaslighting the folks that are tuning into their programs. I mean, it's just, it's extremely unfortunate. So here's a clip from Donald Trump, and let's listen for just a second.
So somebody that's very, very respected asked me to do his show 2 weeks ago,
And by the way, this was live. I think he just got the information of the endorsement while he was actively campaigning. I believe this is still in Pennsylvania or Michigan. I think this is the Michigan rally more. I'm thinking about it here because I was watching it yesterday, and he responded to the endorsement live because obviously this is a big deal.
said, why not? And to me, it's very big because he's the biggest there is, I guess, in that world by far. Somebody said the biggest beyond anybody in a long time. And his name is Joe Rogan, and he's never done this before.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And of course, the president was extremely gracious in his remarks, and he was very happy to receive Joe Rogan's endorsement. Here's Joe Rogan's words himself here, so you can follow along on the screen. The great and powerful at Elon Musk during that interview basically helped convince Rogan that this is a very consequential and important election, and all of us have a duty to do what we can to literally save our country. I don't believe that's hyperbole. I don't believe that I'm using rhetoric. I'm just telling you what the reality is, and that's exactly what Elon Musk was doing with Joe Rogan. He goes on, if it wasn't for him, we'd be effed. He makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you'll hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement of Trump. Enjoy the podcast. So that was his endorsement. And I think that it's extremely compelling. Again, if you go listen to the interview, you'll see exactly why I'm making these statements. And here's Elon Musk. He's he's very well spoken. Elon Musk, he doesn't talk like using these 25-cent words. He's just well spoken, plain spoken, and I like what he has to say.
If the Dems win this election, they will legalize enough illegals to turn the swing states, and everywhere will be like California. There will be no escape.
That is so insane.
This is the final. This is it. This is the last chance.
Has anybody tried
and
to
I
push
just want to
back?
Go out and vote. Vote like your life depends on it. Vote like your future depends on it, because it does.
Amen. I think that's spot on. Now, I will tell you that, again, we've talked about it here on this program. The reason that they have this open border situation going on right now is because the Democrats are actively betting. It's a power grab, folks. They're betting that in the future, they know one way or the other, these folks are going to have to be on a pathway to citizenship, or at least the children that they have are American citizens, and in 18 years they can vote. And they're betting that this is a power grab. These are sure votes for the Democrats. I don't think that it's going to be that way with Hispanics, the way they think it is going to be. And the reason I say that is not all Hispanics are what you would call liberal in that sense of the word. Most of the Hispanic individuals I know, they're very family oriented. They're very conservative. They're generally Catholic, church going, God fearing individuals. And they want what most of us want in this country. And that is, we want to be in charge of our own future. We don't want the government giving us handouts. We want to have a strong military, general conservative principles. And I just think that the Dems are misreading this by allowing all this illegal immigration that is currently going on. Now, again, I could be wrong. It could be another huge voting block for the Democrats, basically the same way they look at the black vote in the United States. And again, that is very unfortunate. And folks, if Donald Trump can't get into office, I hate to say this, I don't really see the way that a Republican can become president of the United States, at least in the near term. I just don't see that as a possibility. Quite frankly, I was very surprised in 2016 when Donald Trump won the presidency, because even back then I didn't think it could be done, because the Republicans on their platform, it just doesn't appeal to enough people in the sense that they could win a national campaign. And I'm talking, of course, about reproductive rights. I don't like using the A word on here because of YouTube's monetary guidelines and stuff like that, but we know what we're talking about because of that issue and just things along those lines. Unfortunately, it just makes it very difficult for the Republican Party to win on a national stage. And so that's what we have to remember. Now, back on Elon Musk being a free speech absolutist, like I was telling you, he is very outspoken on what the Democrats are trying to do to our free speech rights. And here he is saying what we've been talking about on this program.
If you don't have freedom of speech, you don't have democracy. Okay, because if you don't have freedom of speech, people cannot make an informed vote. If they're just being fed propaganda, and there's no freedom of speech, democracy is an illusion. So freedom of speech is the bedrock of democracy. That's why freedom of speech is the First Amendment. Once you lose freedom of speech, you lose democracy. Game over.
The irony in this election, as you hear Kamala Harris and the Democrats constantly screaming out loud that democracy is on the ballot, that it's the end of everything as we know it if Donald Trump gets elected. And the irony here, folks, is what they're saying is actually true, but not against the Republicans. It is, as far as I'm concerned, towards the Democrats, because make no mistake about it, they want to do what Britain is doing right now, and frankly, what they're doing in Brazil, but definitely in the European Union, specifically the Britain, what do they call that? The UK. They have it there now where you don't have free speech. There are, I think it's 2,000 or 3,000 people currently serving jail sentences right now for something they posted on X or on Facebook that was upsetting to one of their neighbors. It's really that loose of a criteria that can get you a real jail sentence. You even had officials from Britain threatening Americans, saying, hey, don't think we can't extradite you, we will. Now, I don't want to get into that subject. Most of that's a crock of BS, but the reality is they're not kidding around. They have their own citizens right now in jail for exercising their free speech rights. It's as Americans, we almost can't believe that that's the reality we live in, but it is. And again, the foundation for this is already being laid with these words such as misinformation. Have you noticed, if you think there was problems with the 2020 election, you really can't say that. Because why? If you say it, they call you, oh, you're an election denier. You're a savage. You're not capable of free thought. An election denier. Sounds like you got a disease, right? Additionally, let's say like you don't buy what they're selling on the climate. Oh, you're a climate change denier. I have to be careful what I say even on this program, because I've told you I've already been slapped by YouTube, which is one of the reasons I'm working hard on my X platform stuff. So I have to be careful with discussing these subjects, at least on both of the platforms at the same time. But I can assure you, they're coming for our free speech, ladies and gentlemen. Make no mistake about it. That's exactly what is going on, and it's very scary. It's very troublesome. You see this right here on your screen. This is something I personally wish Donald Trump talked more about this at his campaign stops and at his rallies. Remember this gymnast, whatever you want to call this individual, that was competing with the women in boxing, and one of the women that he was boxing actually quit and said, "That's it. I've never been hit like that." Well, they went ahead, according to this article here, it says that they obtained a French medical report of this individual. His name's there. It shows that he has XY chromosomes, so he's a biological man. He has male testosterone levels. He has testicles, and he has something else in a smaller form that you can use your imagination on. So basically, they allowed a man to get in the ring and beat up a bunch of women, and it could and can be deadly. It definitely can mess up whoever's in the ring with this particular individual. And listen, I have nothing against anybody, trans people. I love everybody. Jesus loves us all. We're all brothers and sisters in Christ. However, women, just like under the Title IX that women fought for many, many years, women should fight with women or have sports with women. Men should have sports with men. Same thing with trans. They should have a trans league or something along them lines. It's only fair way and just way to handle this situation. Again, something has to be done about that because it just cannot continue the way that it's going right now. And I want to end on this point, and then we're going to take some comments here. That comment with Liz Cheney involving Donald Trump, this is not a joke. This is going to sound like I'm making this up. Right now, you have the Attorney General from the state of Arizona who is looking at that comment that Donald Trump made. You have a federal campaign, and again, you have local, state individuals trying to bring criminal charges against somebody for words. Number one, we're talking free speech again. Number two, we're talking about a federal campaign. And just like with Fani Willis in Georgia, you have state individuals in the state of Arizona looking at bringing charges against President Trump for something he said. And what he said was not a threat. But let's take a look at this. And
that line, but she also
so
put
let
it
me,
in the larger perspective.
Let me blow this up here so we can hear this. Here we go. And again, this is on MSNBC, and you know how these people always, let's just say they stretch the truth. I'll say they lie, but let's listen to this for a second.
And Bram Resnick, the political anchor and reporter from our NBC affiliate in Phoenix, KPNX, joins us. Talk about this breaking news regarding Donald Trump's comments that he made about Liz Cheney in Arizona last night. The Attorney General is responding?
That's right. I just spoke to Attorney General Chris Mays about 2 hours ago for the taping of my Sunday show. She told me she just gotten off the phone with her criminal division chief, and she was investigating whether what Donald Trump said about Liz Cheney constituted a death threat under Arizona law. I'll tell you, under Arizona law, it is illegal to make threats or intimidate someone, can be charged as a Class 1 misdemeanor, Class 6 felony. Chris Mays told me they're looking into it. I asked her whether this was just political speech, free speech. She said, we're checking to see if it crossed that line. But she also put it in the larger perspective. If you're here right now, you begin to understand how this place is ready for a high security event on Tuesday, an election. Our sheriff's office is talking about a no tolerance policy for protests. Chris Mays is activating all her agents. Every law enforcement agency in the state is involved with protecting the vote, protecting voters. So
isn't that just amazing? I mean, it's really sickening, but you have a situation now where anything and everything we do, and this is one of the subjects that I love to talk about on this channel, and I'll be doing more of it in the future, and that is anything to do with the law, especially how to stay out of trouble with the law, specifically dealing with police and court cases. And I'm talking civil and criminal. And of course, in this particular situation, we're talking about a state official, the Attorney General, there's an active investigation, according to their report, looking into whether or not comments said by a major presidential candidate violates the law in the state of Arizona. Just unbelievable. I mean, it's really disgusting, shocking. and unbelievable. I mean, I'm really stretched on my vocabulary to try to find an appropriate word to use to describe this. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the world we live in. And unless we get people like Donald Trump back into office to put a stop to this, it's only going to get worse from here. I hate to have to rely on a Supreme Court to essentially enforce our rights under the Constitution. And let's be honest about it. You have people that are getting too old that's going to have to start stepping down. That's another reason we hope Donald Trump makes it into office. You have, for example, you have Justice Clarence Thomas. He's been in there since the 90s. I don't know his exact age, but he's not what you'd call a spring chicken. I believe Samuel Alito is also to the point where he's going to be aging out pretty quickly. So I meant the next president might have another 2 or 3 Supreme Court picks to make. And if you have 2 or 3 people that are replaced with liberals, you're going to take the 6-3 majority, and you're going to have, what is that, a 6-2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6-3 majority. It's going to flip it. It's going to be completely flipped. So scary stuff. Absolutely tragic and scary. So let me take a quick peek at some of the comments here. Appreciate all my normal friends and everybody joining in. I definitely always appreciate it when y'all join me. I think, Zach, I seen you say that, and hello again, American Anna. Yeah, definitely a lot of joy in the campaigns today. And Zach, you live in Pennsylvania, if I remember right? Let's see, American Anna, she's a horrible candidate. Thank you for saying hello and stopping by. Oh, Charles, good to see you again, my friend. Nashville, Tennessee. Amen. Trump 2024. All right, it's good to see a lot of my regulars. I'm sorry that it's been a while since I've been doing videos like I used to do as far as the lives, but as I've told you before, and as you may already know, if you want the details, you have to go to the X platform, and my handle is at ReachJRDukes. You have to go there and you can see the information on there, but I didn't get a strike, but I got a warning. We'll just let it go at that over one of the lives I did. So there's certain subjects that I just want to make sure I'm very careful on and I steer away from, because it is their platform, and I want to respect their rules. I may not agree with it, but it is what it is. Thank God for X and for other platforms. And eventually I may start something on, I think it's Patreon. Individuals that want to see additional content that I'm going to start making, we can have more frank, free, and straightforward discussions as a group. And I'm working on that. So the individuals here that normally join me, be looking for that in the near future. And maybe that'd be a good way for us all to get together and build a community between all of us here. And yeah, Zach, I see you're in Pennsylvania. I hope you've already got out and voted, my friend. Very important. Very important. Yeah, especially being there in Pennsylvania. Zach, my vote will, yeah, you may be the deciding vote for the president. That'd be pretty funny, wouldn't it? That is definitely a very real possibility. Good. I'm glad to see we had a lively discussion. Thank you for the micro, Zach. I couldn't have said it better myself here. The good deal. Well, American Anna got a new puppy. Congratulations on that. All right, fantastic, my friends. I definitely appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. I'm gonna cut it off at this point because I'm gonna let everybody go to essentially get set up for the big boy news, so they can tell us who's winning or projected to win, and we can hopefully just all be prayerful that Donald Trump's able to pull this out. It's extremely important for our country, for our families, for each and every one of us. And remember this: if for some reason he doesn't win, God forbid he doesn't win, but let's say he doesn't win, it's going to be okay, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be different. It's going to be difficult, but it is what it is. I'm certain God's going to continue to bless our country one way or the other. It's just, we'll just have to see how it works out. But for now, I'm extremely hopeful. I just feel it that this is going to work out. And either way, there's nothing we can do about it, right? It's not up to us. It's in God's hands. So we'll let it go like that. But anyway, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Everybody stops by and says hi. It means a lot to me. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Always say, my friends, keep your mind free. Never give up. Till next time, I am J.R. Dukes.